you still with us, Phil?
I'm here. I'm here.
Has Amy joined us yet? Amy Covage? David Deviney, are you here? Josh Herring. Josh Kaczynski is here. Susie Lacer.
Yes.
Ruth Linos is here. Sherry Moore, are you here, Sherry? Eugene Organ, we know is here. David Reeser is here. Philip Sheemhugh. Franny Brindle is here. Emily Secord, are you here? And Carl Ye is here.
Here.
Did I miss anybody from the committee? Okay. So Rachel and Kate, how about keeping an eye out? If somebody joins us, be sure to let me know, okay? So welcome to our December meeting. And this is going to be a substantive meeting. We're going to focus primarily, this will be primarily an informational meeting, but this will be the meeting during which committee members will gather the information on which we will be making our recommendations, probably at our next meeting. So this is the time when you'll have an opportunity to ask questions and make sure you have a full understanding of each of the proposals. We're going to focus primarily, well, we are going to focus on formula funds today. And there are several different categories, but everything we talk about today will be within the broad category of formula funds. And now I think I will turn it over to Kate to talk a little bit about budget and the criteria that we'll use as we make our recommendations.
Really quick, Mike, do we have anyone on the phone or anyone that wanted to be in audience participation? Anyone who's not on the committee? If so, if you could just unmute yourself and say your name.
This is Rob Innerfeld with the City of Eugene. Shane Rhodes will be doing our primary presentation, but I'll just be here in case there's questions that come up where Shane wants any support from me. I don't know if Shane's on the call yet or not.
I've seen him. I saw him on.
This is Amanda Ferguson. I'm with the City of Cottage Grove, and I'm here to do a brief presentation when we come up.
Thanks, Amanda.
My name is Philip Sheemhugh, and I'm with the Stiff Advisory Committee. I was with it last time, sorry, so just here.
Thank you, Philip. We have you down as president.
This is Kelly Clark. I'm with the Lane Council of Governments, and I'll be doing our formula fund applications when my time comes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Who's MJ? MJ just popped on.
That could be Mark Johnson from LTD.
Okay. We know that guy. All right, Kate, you want to go ahead and talk with us a little bit about budget and criteria?
Yes, very quickly, very high level, because I really want to make most of the time for the providers to talk to you about their specific projects today. You did get a hefty packet, so I hope you were able to review those projects before today, but they will go through each one of the projects. So I really quick just kind of want to remind everyone what you are tasked with as the Stiff Advisory Committee. And your two main goals are to look at the list of projects and either approve or reject individual projects, and then to recommend a prioritization of projects that will go to the LTD board, which they'll then approve, and then that will start to go up the channels through ODOT to eventually be approved with OTC. But as you were thinking about this, I know that you have seen these quite a bit. Most of you, this is your second time on the committee. So, but again, I think it's always important as you're listening to the providers today to be thinking about each project within the context of this criteria that's been set out, that is the criteria for what are good formula fund projects within the STIP program. So these are referenced in your packet, and you can see them throughout all of the packet. If you have any questions about them, let me know. And then also one of the things that the providers are asked to comment on in each of their projects, and you can see that in the packet as well, is which of their projects, which of the Oregon Public Transportation Plan goals those projects meet. So again, that's in your packet, and you'll see it on the slides today as well. So I'm not going to go through each of those because I think we've talked about them in the past, but just kind of as a good refresher. I think another thing really high level that we're going to talk about very quickly is that the projects are funded through either some of them are in district, and when we say in district, we mean within the LTD boundary. And so anything that's within the LTD boundary goes into one pot of funding, which is the majority of the funding in our county, because that's where it's generated. The tax is generated is in the LTD boundary. So those funds today, all of the projects that are applying for in-district funds, those right now where we are at with these applications is a total here. You can see this the number on this slide. And then you can see in the second part of this what our estimated funds are. So right now for in-district, it does look over the course of the biennium that we do have a little bit of extra funding left, which we'll talk about more later, which we're undersubscribed right now. Then any projects that are out of district, so anything out of the LTD boundary, those projects right here, you can see those are the Florence, Oak Ridge, et cetera. We'll talk about those more later too. You can see what the applications or totals are right now. And then you can see we're a little oversubscribed for that. Several of the projects are asking for some funding from within the boundary and some without, because those projects do go in and out of the LTD boundary. So that's why they are asking for those funds. So just to keep that in mind too, that's covered more in your packet. So make sure that you can look through your packet and see those. And again, we'll talk more about the budget at the end and more about next steps for you all. But I just wanted to kind of make sure everyone is aware of this. I also do want to remind you, if you have your packet handy, that there at the very end of your packet, there are summaries of all of the projects in the budgets. So that can be a helpful reference place, because we are going to discuss a lot of different projects today. So if you need just a quick, where are we? That could be a good place to end up as the last 2 or 3 pages of your packet.
Great. So
Yep.
Kate, did you see that Josh Herring has joined us?
Oh, I didn't see that. Hi, Josh.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to start out with LTD. And Tiffany, are you going to introduce that? Before you start, I want to just do a little explaining.
Okay.
So as we go through this, you will discover that we've organized this by presenter, not by the order of the projects in your agenda. So for example, LTD will start with operations, and all of the different projects that fall under operations will come in that part of the presentation rather than where they appear on the agenda. However, at each project, as we go through it, the page number on the agenda is listed. So I just wanted to let you know that we'll be doing a little bit of flipping back and forth, but I'm sure that the presenters will make it really clear to us where we are in the agenda. So Tiffany, go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. And thanks for that clarification. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tiffany Edwards. I'm the Intergovernmental Relations Manager for LTD. And I'm joined today by my dream team of project leads who are going to do the heavy lifting of walking you through each of LTD's proposed projects. They'll be sharing the specifics, including the project details, the purpose, proposed funding, formula funding ask. And again, as Mike mentioned, you can follow along with the descriptions that provide some additional details. Thanks, Kate. So we put them into categories that include both the in-district and out-of-district projects, and we'll be very specific when we get to explaining which ones are in and which ones are outside of the metro area. And so those categories are operations, rolling stock, which is obviously transit speak for the replacing and adding of new buses or vehicles, innovation, infrastructure, and then STIF administration and reserves. And then here, to give you an idea of how we're dividing this all up, you'll see that it's primarily in the form of additional vehicles and a small percentage going towards administration and an out-of-district reserve. And Christina is going to talk more about that. But I just wanted you to see that this kind of shows how those funds are being distributed from LTD's perspective. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cosette Reese, and she's going to start off with the operations projects, and we're going to go through and just have each of our presenters present all of the projects within their kind of wheelhouse, just for to make it a little bit more easier to understand, and we felt that it would be more efficient use of your time. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking and turn it over to Cosette.
So just before you start, Cosette, I'll mention to the group, this is where we do a little hopping around. So you can see the top project is Project C. That's on page 12. The next one is Project E, is on page 17 of the agenda. And I'm sure Cosette will make that clear to us as she walks us through this. Go ahead, Cosette. Not hearing you.
Yeah, she's really, really quiet. Probably have to turn
Your
up.
microphone is working. You're not on mute, but it's very, very soft. No, we're not hearing you. Tiffany, should we skip ahead to someone else while Cosette gets that ironed out?
I think that makes sense. We could go to the rolling stock if Matt is ready to do that, and we'll go back to Cosette at the end.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear.
Oh, great. Well, all right. Well, hey, thank you very much. So we will do some jumping around. The first project we have identified, which Cosette was supposed to tee me up really well for, is the Ride Source shopper vehicles. That's on page 15 of the packet you guys see. What we're looking for in the fiscal year 22, the first year of this STIF package, is the $125,000. This is 100% STIF funded for an expansion service for our Ride Source shopper. That's something, and Cosette will talk about that here shortly, but that's one of the services we provide to the community. I'm hearing feedback, so I'll pause. So that's something we provide to the community, where we utilize and go around to places. Essentially what it's in the name is allowing people to go shop around, and that's a service that we provide. And this is an expansion vehicle to that service. So again, $125,000 for fiscal year 22. The second one is our Ride Source replacement vehicles. Just for some numbers, these fixed assets are a useful life of 7 years or 200,000 miles. Currently, with our Ride Source vehicles, the ones that we have identified the average life is over 11 and a half years old. So we are having an aging fleet, which obviously has some impact as a result of maintenance costs. And then that's to day. When we're talking about fiscal year 22, obviously those the average age will increase. So we're seeking $1 million in fiscal year 22, and then same in fiscal year 23. LTD will bring a match to this project, but we are seeking $2 million for the replacement of these vehicles. And again, a total of 19 vehicles were identified. The third project is our fixed route replacement, found on page 16 of the packet. And this is a large dollar amount. Kind of Tiffany identified that a little bit earlier, where the majority of our ask has to do with rolling stock. But the vehicles we identified, a total of, we're looking at, about 15 alternative vehicles. And this is a match for funds that we are bringing, are identified for the first fiscal year electric vehicles. LTD is excited, and it's one of the board goals for us to get 25 electric vehicles within first by fiscal year 23. And we're excited to do this, and it's an ambitious goal, and we need these funds and for those matches. But overall, the first fiscal year 22, about $2.1 million, and fiscal year 23, $3.2 million. In your packet, you'll identify the second year, fiscal year 23, we didn't identify electric vehicles, and that's mainly because we're going to go through a fleet procurement plan to help identify what propulsion we will have in the future to meet our goal, or board's goal for getting to zero emissions by 2035. So we're excited to do that, but those are the three main projects with our in-district rolling stock. So I will go to out of district
Why don't you
now.
hold off right there? Let's see if there are questions or comments. And Kate, I'll note that Amy is present. Okay, are there questions or comments regarding rolling stock?
This is Phil Barnhart. I'm not sure I heard all of it. Are you saying that you're replacing the rolling stock with entirely electric vehicles? Did I understand that correctly?
No, we have a fleet procurement plan that we're going to be going through that looks at what the propulsion is outside of fiscal year 22. So in fiscal year 22, as identified in the packet, we're looking at electric. But for fiscal year 23, we're really allowing our fleet procurement plan to identify what that next technology is. It definitely can be electric, but we want to look through the feasibility of what that particular technology looks like for fiscal year 23.
Gotcha. And do you have an idea of what the normal range needs are for these vehicles on a typical day, and then on a long day?
You know, we have looked at that, obviously, and what we're getting in the 11 electric buses, if you guys didn't know that we were getting early next year, the range we're assuming is about 150 miles is what we can get out of that. Some of our routes obviously will exceed that 150 mile mark that we need on a day-to-day basis, but a lot of those 11 buses can operate within that 150 miles to make sure it's productive. Battery technology continues to improve. The manufacturers are stretching battery technology, adding more batteries, getting more batteries in the usable space that you have on a bus. So currently the 11 that we're looking at is we're assuming 150 miles that we'll get out of them, but every environment and terrain are different. So that's when we get a test and see how far we get to go with those. Battery technology continues to improve, and I think you're going to get more and more out of the electric buses.
Okay, I thought we were talking about ride source. Maybe I'm on the wrong part of the agenda.
No, I think you are, and he talked specifically about gas powered there. So maybe you want to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, so the ride source replacement vehicles, those are ones that we're also looking at what type of propulsions. We identified gas given the complications, but it is one that our fleet procurement plan will be definitely looking at. Currently, electric vehicles, it's about 2 times as expensive for just the vehicle itself for those type of cutaway vehicles we have on our ride source. And so just right now in this application, it doesn't seem that that's the right fit, but that fleet procurement plan will also help identify those needs and what's the best technology to go forward with.
And what's the likely useful life of those gas-powered ride source vehicles?
The ride source, the useful life is 7 years or 200,000 miles. The larger, thanks for the added clarification, the larger fixed route buses are 12 years or 500,000.
Right.
The project for the fixed route replacement.
Great. Of course, I asked the question because of the timing issues when you have to get fully away from fossil fuels. It sounds like the ride source vehicle's life expectancy is short enough so that it might be possible to use fossil fuels for the next round, but certainly not for the one after that.
You're correct.
Thanks, Phil. Ruth, did you have something?
Ruth is
You're
on mute.
unmuted, but I can't hear you. Still not hearing you. Will, it's not the volume control on your keyboard by chance?
So can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, had the wrong setting. So I just want clarification from Matt that when he stated that the funds he's asking for the STIF budget is a match, it's for those federal funds that are listed right below it. So that the
For the fixed route.
5,400. Yes.
What project are
So
you
you-
referencing?
Project D on page 16.
Okay, you said, so for the fixed route vehicles, yeah, the STIF formula funds we're requesting for fiscal year 22 is just about 2.1 million. And then the federal match is the $6 million for fiscal year 22. And then for fiscal year 23, it's 3.25 for the formula. And then we're bringing just under a 4 million federal match.
So if you don't receive these STIF funds, you wouldn't have the necessary match to get the federal funding. Am I understanding that correctly?
To
yes?
fund the project. Yeah, so we would have to figure out other funding sources, but right now, the way in which we have it mapped out, we would need the STIF formula funds.
Okay, I understand the budget, but I thought I heard the term match, that the funding request was in order to be a match. So I'm not understanding where these funds match other dollars.
So the federal, which we identified, is also the formula funds that we have. So I believe it's 5339. I'm not positive exactly the formula that we're using, but we are going to match those two together to come up with a total project cost for the purchase of the vehicles.
Okay, so I guess you're clarifying that yes, you would need these STIF funds in order to be able to match the federal funds to have enough to purchase this amount of vehicles.
Yeah, and if we don't get the total amount, then general fund would have to be brought in, or LTD would have to seek additional funding elsewhere.
Okay, great. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Josh Krasinski, go ahead.
Oh, you had mentioned how old the ride source vehicles you were replacing were, but you didn't say anything about the fixed route. Can you explain a little bit more about what you're replacing with these new vehicles?
Yeah, thank you. So our fixed route, the useful life is 12 years, as I referenced earlier, and the average age currently, the ones that we identified, is 13.6 to date. And so by the time we go actually to replacing them, they'll be 14 and a half to 15 years old on average.
Is that it on questions for the rolling stock? Okay, Tiffany, what's next?
We've got more rolling stock, but this is the
Oh,
out of
okay.
district. So
All right.
Matt will stick with us.
Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So these are the out of district and the Diamond Express expansion vehicles that's the service for Oak Ridge to Eugene that gets commuters from that community into Eugene. John Allen will talk about the operation aspect of this, but we are seeking funding for fiscal year 22 for an expansion vehicle to support the additional service we want to provide to that community. This is, again, an expansion. We do not have a vehicle to replace for this. And then the last project that you get to hear from me is the Rhody Express expansion bus. This is another expansion. This is our service there in Florence that we have a contractor provide for us. We're seeking $110,000 for fiscal year 22 to support that service. So just going back to, I apologize, useful life of the Diamond Express expansion bus would be 12 years. And then the useful life of the Rhody Express would be 7 years based upon what we're looking to purchase for those services. And with that, I am done with that, but definitely would take questions if people have them.
I have a quick question, if I could.
Go ahead.
It's, David. So I was curious on the expansion buses for both these projects, and actually there was one on the other slide as well. I'm assuming that demand is there to justify it, and if you could expand on that a little more, do you guys experience turnaways, or are you hearing from customers for the need for expansion, or what is the driving force behind that?
That is a wonderful question. Can I punt that for later on in the presentation where John will actually share more and he would be more of the person to answer those questions?
You bet. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And that's in about, I think, 8 more slides for us. But then we do have to backtrack to Cosette because we need her to present for us.
So Eugene, do you have any questions on rolling stock, either in district or out of district?
No, I think actually Phil asked my questions.
All right. Anybody else on rolling stock?
This is Phil Barnhart again. I didn't hear what sort of vehicles they're talking about for Project N. I suspect one of them is a fairly long distance need that might make it difficult to use electric. But the Rhody Express might actually be a good one for that purpose. Have you had any thoughts about that issue?
Yeah, for that Diamond Express, I think you're right with that demand and the service. It is a long distance, so it doesn't lend itself right now for electric. So we are identifying a diesel, and that's why the price is substantially less than what we're asking for the electric. On the Rhody Express, that's something, like I said, the $110,000 is what would get for just a standard gas vehicle. If we did go electric, and I don't know what infrastructure they have over there, it's not the greatest like we have here. It would be about twice as much on the cost. So both of these are standard. One's will be identified as a diesel, the other as a gasoline.
And this is Phil again. I have the same question about any time that you're buying a fossil fuel vehicle, the key question is when will it be time to replace it so that you can go with a non-fossil fuel vehicle at that time? Can you answer that question for these two?
For the Rhody Express, it would be that 7 years. We look to turn around that vehicle and replace it. And then for the Diamond Express, and this is actually something LTD has done, as renewable diesel is coming to the market, we've switched our fleet over to renewables to get away from some of the fossil fuels. So that's an approach, and I think an appropriate one to look at for that. So it's a two-prong, but I think it's definitely going back to our fleet procurement plan that we're going through is really identifying what fuel propulsion types can we have, taking a look at definitely one of those missions and key things that LTD board has set for us.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay, Tiffany, is Cosette up next or?
Well, I was gonna check in with Cosette and see if we can hear her.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
Hey, sorry, I guess it was my
Okay.
headset. So thank you so much. So our first project under the operations for the Metro is Project C, the Ride Source Shopper Expansion. This is on page 12 in your packet. The purpose of this project is to expand capacity on our Ride Source Shopper service. This service primarily serves older adults who would ordinarily utilize paratransit for individual ADA shopping trips, and instead creates a social experience on a shared ride system to access their neighborhood shopping markets. Riders receive assistance with their bags and have room for additional perishable or frozen goods that are not available on typical paratransit vehicles. We're currently operating, actually not currently because we're in a COVID situation, but when we're not in a COVID situation, we are operating a Ride Source Shopper service, and we have a waiting list on many of our neighborhood routes. So this would serve additional folks and give us an opportunity potentially also to expand eligibility to utilize the service. So for this project, we're requesting $200,000 in fiscal year 23 to begin operations. And as Matt already talked about, there's also a vehicle component to this project. So the second project is Project E. It's the Student Fare Program. It's on page 17 in your packet. The purpose of the Student Fare Program is to continue to provide unlimited access to LTD's bus services for all middle school and high school youth in our county. What we know is that people who use a bus at a young age are more likely to use public transit in the future, building lifelong transit riders. In addition, access to the bus enables kids to access recreation, jobs, education, and other services that help teens thrive in our community. This program is part of a larger free K-12 program to encourage individuals to use the LTD bus system and to ease the cost of transportation to the families of our community. So for this project, we're requesting $850,000 each in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. So the third project in our Metro operations, Project F, is our low-income fare program. It's page 19 in your packet. The purpose of this project is to continue to make fares available to low-income individuals in our community. LTD partners with local nonprofit agencies to distribute fares to low-income individuals and families to ensure that they have access to programs, services, jobs, and education. LTD provides the fare to qualified nonprofits at a 75% discount. The agencies in turn give the fares to individuals at no cost. For many people in our community, transportation is a very significant barrier to achieving a quality of life through local programs and services and gainful employment. This partnership with nonprofits provides critical community access to individuals who need it most. So for this program, we're requesting $750,000 each for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23.
Is that it for operations?
That's it. Well, yes, it is.
So Eugene, do you have any questions on the operations section?
Yeah, I do have, Cosette, could you tell me what the qualifications are for the shopper service?
Sure. Currently, the shopper service is available to people who are eligible for our ADA paratransit service. So again, otherwise they would be taking individual paratransit trips. Now, what we're looking at doing is expanding that because what we know is that there are people in our community who just for grocery shopping could benefit from this service, that they can use the fixed route bus for all of their trips other than grocery shopping. It's hard for them to get their groceries to and from their home to the bus stop. So this gives us an opportunity to potentially open up eligibility to others in the community. Thanks, Eugene.
Okay.
I had a,
Eugene, did you have anything else?
so Cosette,
I don't. No, I don't.
All right, go ahead, Ruth.
Because then I just wanted to clarify for Project E with the student fair program, it says it's county-wide. So all of the rural school systems are going to get this program if LTD service is in their communities.
So this is just the LTD programs. So this would be basically our fixed route bus within the Eugene and Springfield area. What we know is that we have a lot of students and youth who come from other locations into our metro area and have the ability to access and use the bus while they're here. So for instance, it would not necessarily apply to the services such as the Oak Ridge Diamond Express or the Rhodey Express that are outside of our service area. The youth could access our service, but they would have to come into our service district to do that.
So the communities, I was thinking more of Junction City, Veneta, and Cottage Grove, Crestwell for the students within those school districts having the student fair program.
Yes, so we're working with all of those school districts to make these fairs available to all of their students.
Great. And the question about the low-income fare program is it going to be applied the same way with as long as there's fixed route in the communities where those low-income residents have access to the social service programs, they will be eligible for the low-income fare?
Correct, and those are good for unlimited rides. So that's just like a regular bus pass.
Okay. What I noticed with the low-income fare, one more point, when you're, as part of the low-income fare program, is there a component for outreach, or is it just going to use the same agencies that have been tapped in the past?
Well, that's a good question, Ruth. We actually have several low-income 501c3s, nonprofits who we work with to provide these fairs, but we're always open to additional nonprofits to work with. This is an area that we're especially interested in expanding, and we have the ability and some room to expand in capacity. So this is an area that we would be doing some marketing and outreach to increase accessibility into our communities.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Josh.
I wanted to ask if the fare programs were integrated with TouchPass, and if so, how do you accommodate people without smartphones?
Great question, Josh. Thanks for asking. So the fares, these student transit fare and the low-income fare both are through our TouchPass program. So the student fare program, we do outreach with the schools, and the schools actually provide the fares. The low-income program, we do outreach through the nonprofits, and the nonprofits provide the fares. So the fares are available either as a rider app, which means that you need to have the app on your phone, so you need to have a smartphone, but we also have a TouchPass card. So it's a touch card, you just tap it on the validator, and it works exactly the same as a mobile app does.
Carl, you got any questions?
Hey, Mike, no, I don't. Thank you very much, though.
Okay. Anybody else on operations? Okay, Tiffany, are we still with LTD?
We are, and we're going to move ahead to innovation, and Andrew Martin is with us, and he's going to take you through the innovation projects.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So want to talk to you today. All of these are, they're kind of different projects, but they really fit into this broad theme of LTD, trying to innovate and trying to be really, I think, useful and responsive to changing needs and opportunities in the community. So one other quick note on all of our slides, you're seeing these the little symbols which show which criteria in the STIF program the projects serve. And the cool thing about these, they all serve all 10. So we just put them on there once. We didn't want to crowd the slide up with 4D icons. But they all meet all 10 of the criteria, which is really cool. At least I think so. So the first project we have in here is our Mobility on Demand Cottage Grove. You may know this as the LTD connector. It operates within the city limits of Cottage Grove and provides kind of origin to destination on-demand rides. You can call in or use a smartphone app. Our partners, South Lane Wheels, help us to operate that. And this was funded in the previous STIF cycle. That's been really successful and has really helped a lot of people in the community and filled a need that was there to get around within the city limits of Cottage Grove. LTD service is really oriented towards delivering people to and from the metropolitan area kind of at commuter time. So the Cottage Grove connector fills a gap in getting around the local community there, and also to getting to the bus to go to the metro area if you don't happen to live right next to the service there. So we're requesting $260,000 in fiscal years 22 and 23, total of $520,000 to continue the service we've been operating in the previous STIF cycle. The next project is very similar. We'd like to begin to do more mobility on demand pilots. So we're requesting $300,000 in each year of 22 and 23, total of $600,000. We believe that that would allow us to operate one additional pilot per year. And those the areas haven't been identified. They are pilots. We're trying out new things. We may end up doing one area for 2 years or 2 areas for 1 year each. The goal is to really be able to iterate and to try and figure out where this is a great fit for our community. I think we did a great job figuring out that Cottage Grove is a great fit, and we want to see where else this type of model can help us to fill in gaps in our service or potentially replace low productivity service. Like I said, we're experimenting with that, and we'll have to identify those areas if the funding is awarded. The third project, it's called Mobile Wallet, but what we're really talking about is basically a smartphone application that would allow you to do trip planning and payment in one place. And that would be across multiple providers. Currently, LTD's been meeting kind of informally with the University of Oregon and the city of Eugene, in particular the parking services, but also the transportation folks. And we've been identifying how we begin doing that, and seeking this funding is a big part of it. The kind of big leap forward is that this would be the one place you go if you need to take a trip, and you could potentially even get a better trip planning experience than on Google. Currently, multimodal trip planning doesn't really happen very many places. So this would be not just, can I take the bus there, but it would be like, can I take the bus there and then ride bike share to get that last leg of the trip and then pay for it all in one place. And we think that that's going to be a huge value to our customers. So we're trying to put together the funding. So we're asking for $450,000 each year, total of $900,000 to help advance this project. And I think there's some other funding involved, some federal funding we're thinking we can match to that. So love to answer questions on that if you have more, but trying to keep it short. The final project in here is our mobility management plan. You may recall this from the previous STIF cycle. This isn't a whole bunch of new money to keep inflating that. We got a late start on that. We've kind of just gotten started. I'm the project manager. We're trying to get everything moving as quickly as we can, but we got started later in the STIF cycle. And what happens is if we don't spend the money before June 30th, all of the money identified for that project last time goes away. So we're just trying to reapply for that money and keep the project going, essentially. So it's not an inflation of that. It's just continuing it into the new STIF cycle. So we have to apply again. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
So I'll mention that we have a long list of projects, and so I'd like for us to be as concise as we can. Are there questions on the innovation section? Eugene, you got anything?
I have one question. On the first project that you mentioned, what are the qualifications for inclusion in that?
The Cottage Grove Mobility on Demand, the LTD connector, is open to everyone. I believe that the fare is $1, and it's open to everyone in the community. We hope everybody rides it.
All right. Thank you.
If there's no other questions, we'll move on to the next section.
Okay, perfect. I think this is where Robin is going to join us.
Yeah, hi.
You're there.
So these, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So these 3 projects are really all designed to work in tandem to provide better information to our riders as they make transit decisions and move through our community. One thing that we know from experience and from data from other transit providers is that accurate real-time data delivered to customers is shown to reduce the riders' wait times, reduce their travel times, increase usage of transit, and increase customer satisfaction of transit. So the first project on the list here is to update and replace the signage on our old MX lines, our original lines, with digital signs that match the signs that are on our newest line. And this is really just replacement of old hardware that's now about 15 years old and is starting to age out, with the LCD signs that are on our new part of the system that are much more graphical in appearance and can give us much more functionality. The second project here is real-time predictive software. And this is really designed to increase the reliability of our real-time predictions for our customers. Oftentimes what a customer really wants to know when they're waiting at a stop is, has the bus come? Did I miss it? How far is it away? I can't see it around the corner. This is a lot of calls to customer service center especially. And it's really helpful to the riders to provide them that information when they're standing there waiting for the bus. So this software will just increase our accuracy of our real-time predictions. And it's important to note that this accuracy of real-time predictions will not only increase the accuracy on our signs as part of this project, but also it goes out to any trip planning apps that consume our real-time data, such as Google Maps, Apple Maps, the Transit app, if people are familiar with that. So it'll not only benefit our signs, but also any other way that our riders get that information, the LTD website, Trip Planner as well. And then the last one is sign management software. And this just allows us to take full advantage of having really good graphical signs. It lets us send out not just the real-time bus information, the information on the routes, what routes connect there, but also to push out any emergency messages, like for instance, the fires that we got this summer, any kind of detour information, snow and ice information, also sending out special events like football games, other things on the system we'd like to make our riders aware of. It really gives us the opportunity to communicate with our riders as they're there waiting on the platforms for the buses.
Great. Eugene, questions?
Yes, I was wondering, do you have any possibility of making the information available to those of us who are legally blind?
As far as the sign software?
Yeah.
Or the sign hardware? That would be something that we could look at to see if signs have that capability on them. I have not seen a sign demoed with that capability, but that's not to say they're not out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. Ruth, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, I was along the same lines. Was there a way that somebody could plug in a headset and hear the information if they're not able to read?
So I think that could be part of the
there's
procurement is looking at
Wi-Fi.
the AD possibilities on the signs, the ADA possibilities with the real-time signs. I'm making a note of that, yes.
Great. If there's no other questions on infrastructure, we'll go. Go ahead, Josh.
I just want to clarify real quick. The real-time predictive software is not just for MX. Is that correct? That's for all the buses?
Yes, that's software that would improve real-time predictions on all bus lines and also, broadcast out to more than just the sign.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll move ahead.
Okay, next we're into infrastructure. And I believe that's Cosette.
Yes. Thanks, Tiffany. So
Yeah.
we're staying with infrastructure, but we're switching gears to our fare collection. So the first project under this is Project G. It's the MX platform validators. The purpose of the project is to complete the implementation of our electronic fare collection system, TouchPass. The MX bus rapid transit system depends on features that speed up operations and reduce dwell time. And by mounting validators on all the platforms, customers can validate their fares as the bus is approaching and be ready to board seamlessly. So for this project, we're requesting $525,000 in fiscal year two to accomplish this project. The second project is Project K, Fare Collection Integration. This is on page 31 in your packet. The purpose of this project is to provide infrastructure and support to link transportation services that connect to or pass through the metro area to LTD's TouchPass fare collection system. This would enable riders to have a seamless experience, even though they're going from one provider to another, and could include services such as the Diamond Express in Oak Ridge, Link Lane between Eugene and Florence, Rhodey Express in Florence, and Link Lane between Florence and Yachats. So for this project, we're requesting $75,000 in fiscal year 23.
Questions? Eugene, you got anything?
Yes.
The same question, I guess. What about making it available for folks with visual impairments?
So
we'll check into that.
Sure, I will. Eugene, our current validators are accessible for folks who use a phone or use the tap card to use. And we're happy to provide training. One of the things that we do on all of our MX platforms in particular is that we put the validators and all of our furniture generally in the same place on the platforms, which makes it easier to find. So again, this is not something we would just launch. We would provide some public involvement and some training as well. Make that available for folks to experience using a guide.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ruth.
I just wondered, services were mentioned except LTD connectors. So is that a service that's not going to see fare collection?
No. So the fare collection integration certainly could include the connector. It could include any of our projects, and including the Eugene or the Cottage Grove connector, and also the MOD programs that we're looking to pilot. And Ruth, it also could include some of the other services that South Lane Wheels is providing. So it could be that we were able to put fare validators and other services, for instance, that South Lane Wheels is providing. And then we make sure that South Lane Wheels receives the fare collection for that. So there's many services actually that either operate adjacent or through the metro area that we could look at including in the TouchPass system.
Great.
Okay, that's the clarification I needed. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we've got about a half an hour and a few more projects to go through. Tiffany, what's next?
Yep, we're getting close. So we're going to take you through our operations outside of our metro area. And you've obviously already heard about the vehicles. So I'm going to let John Allen take you through just these service expansions.
Sure, I'll try and go quickly. So these are the services that were tied to the vehicles that Matt had discussed earlier. So first we've got the Diamond Express fourth trip. The Diamond Express, it connects Oak Ridge with services in the Eugene metro area, and it provides increased accessibility for Oak Ridge residents to connect to other transportation in the area, such as Greyhound, Amtrak, and the airport. The Diamond Express currently has 3 runs every weekday, making for limited options for residents that are traveling back and forth. This is also a long route, so during busy days, there can be competition for seats in the wheelchair bays. Adding a 4th afternoon trip adds some flexibility and relieves these pressures. Then we also have a project for a Saturday Diamond Express expansion. And so one outstanding question that's remained has been whether weekend service could be used by Oak Ridge residents or for tourists that are looking to visit Oak Ridge. So we've recently entered into an interline agreement with Amtrak that allows anyone traveling via train to extend their trip onto the Diamond Express without needing to purchase a separate ticket. So Oak Ridge has been keen to expand its presence as a mountain biking hub, and the Diamond Express could provide a vital connection for any weekend recreation activities in the area. And then third, we've got the Roadie Express expansion. So the Roadie Express is an important link throughout the city of Florence, looping between Old Town and North Florence. It also connects other regional transportation, such as the Link Lane services to Yachats and Eugene. And service is currently hourly, and we're proposing increasing the frequency of these trips so that they're available every 30 minutes. The Roadie Express currently has a north loop and a south loop, which are constrained by the hourly runtime, and adding frequency would also allow us flexibility if we want to consider how to better serve the area. Thanks so much. Are there any questions about these projects?
I had a quick question, if I could.
Yeah.
With the Oak Ridge route that you mentioned, and actually right before you said that, it popped in my head about the mountain bike interest out there, like you said. And I was curious, is there any way to expand the ability to carry bikes on the bus? And what is the existing capacity?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So our current Diamond Express vehicle has a bike rack mounted on the front, which has capacity for 3 bicycles. If capacity permits and they aren't being used by, for example, passengers who identify with disabilities that need to use the wheelchair bays, we do have discretion to be able to allow additional bicycles to be inside of the bus, as we might, for example, on our Mackenzie route for our fixed route system. And we do have other options that could potentially be available if it proves to be very popular. But currently what I've been hearing is that having the bicycle rack mounted on the front of the bus has been sufficient to transport people who have been interested. And there could potentially be other options that we explore in the future, such as a bicycle trailer or other means of transporting bicycles if it proves to be wildly popular.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Eugene, you okay?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay. Okay, Tiffany.
Hey, we're gonna have Christina bring it home and talk to you about our stiff reserve and administration. So Christina, go ahead.
Hi. So Project P, it's on page 41 of your packet. And this project is for stiff reserves. And the purpose of the stiff reserve is to prepare for unanticipated events that could jeopardize the smooth continuation of a stiff funded project. In the last biennium, we established an in-district reserve, and this year's request is to establish an out-of-district reserve. The stiff reserve project is comprised of 2 months of operations, which is in alignment with LTD's fund balance and budgetary reserve policy. And the amount of the project request is $56,200, which is split over the 2-year biennium. Anybody have any questions about this project?
Seeing none, go ahead on administration.
All right, I'll continue on. Project H is on page 23 of your packet, and this project is for stiff administration. And the purpose of this project is to cover the administrative costs that are associated with managing both the in and out of district stiff programs. And this project is comprised of administrative costs that include activities such as managing the audit and compliance requirements associated with stiff, providing advisory, committee management, and a transparent public application and review process. It also includes program oversight and reporting, training, technical assistance, and stiff funding distribution, to name a few of those administrative type activities. The amount of the project request is $200,000 each year for a total of $400,000 over the 2 years. The second project, which is Project I, it's on page 25 of your packet. And this project is the Lane County Stiff Program Information Overview. And the purpose of this project is to create an informational guide that provides an overview of the projects in the STIF plan. The project is intended to clearly communicate the community's benefits and how the STIF investments accomplish the STIF goals and improve the transit system access statewide, regionally, and locally. The informational guide will be understandable and accessible across multiple demographics in our community. And the amount of the project request is $55,000 that would all be spent in the first year of the biennium.
Great. Questions?
This is Amy. I actually have a question about the reserve, but I was still thinking about it. How was that reserve amount determined?
Yeah, it's 2 months of operating. So basically we take the total amount that is for 1 year of operating STIF dollars and divide it by 12 and multiply it by 2. And that's how we came up with the amount for the STIF reserve.
Okay, does that bring us to the end of the LTD presentations?
Yes, you have all of that. You have all of our projects now. And I think since we did a pretty good job of doing questions as we went along, unless there are any other questions, we can let you all move on to the next group.
Great. Last call on LTD. Okay, LCOG.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's the obligatory question, I guess. My name again is Kelly Clark. I'm a transportation planner with LCOG and here to present our 2 applications today. Project L is for the Eugene to Florence intercommunity route, and Project S is for the Florence to Yachats connector. For both of these projects, we applied for STIF discretionary funding, which is the statewide competitive pot of funding. And we applied for 90% of the cost for both of these routes. So what we're asking from the formula funds is the 10% of match required for those applications. So I just wanted to mention that. So Project L, the Eugene to Florence intercommunity route, our application is for daily transit operations between Eugene and Florence of $120,000 per. Can you go back one? Sorry, I'll just go over the numbers first. For the 2 years, and that's page 33 in your packet. The Florence to Yachats connector, we're requesting a total of $660,000 for over the 2 years, and that's on page 47. So sorry, Kate, now I'm ready. The Florence to Eugene intercommunity route is completely funded right now through STIF funding, both discretionary and formula, similar to what we're setting up for the next STIF biennium. We just started it in February 18th of this year. And so it started operating under normal conditions and then COVID hit. So we've been operating under COVID conditions for the majority of this route's life. Pacific Crest Bus Lines is our contract operator. And the stops are at the Amtrak station in Eugene, LTT kind of around the transit station in Eugene, Veneta, Mapleton, Old Town Florence, the Three Rivers Casino, Old Town Florence, and then the Florence, what we've created now is a key transit hub at the grocery outlet in Florence. And the Confederated Tribes of Kuzlor, Umpqua, Sayusla Indians are a strong partner for us. They contribute formula funds as well, and have contributed the main bus that we use for this route. And then the next slide is our Florence to Yachats connector. And this route has operated since 2018. It is an important connector and an important link in the transit network along Highway 101, connecting our coastal communities and visitors and residents along this beautiful Oregon coast. It starts in Florence at the Florence Grocery Outlet and stops at the Carl G. Washburn State Park and ends on this northernmost point at the Little Log Church and Museum in Yachats, and then makes a return trip with the same stops. I think it's exciting to note that we can now say that the Florence that Florence does have a key transit hub with the interlining of our 2 LCOG routes and the Coos County Area Transit's new route between Coos Bay and Florence. And so now it's an exciting new transit hub that we see in Florence. And so we're eager to keep those routes operating in the sustainable way that they currently are. In the next slide, we have requested funding for both of our discretionary and formula fund applications for a replacement bus for the Florence to Yachats connector. The bus is 2018 Ford, and will be nearing the end of its useful life as far as mileage by the end of the second year of this next STIF biennium. And so we don't have, LCOG doesn't have backup buses, so we need to make sure that we're in constantly thinking ahead towards the replacement of the buses as they end their useful life and having them queued up ready to go. And so we're trying to be proactive with that with this bus purchase or this bus request if funded. This is just kind of an overall, where we see our role in public transportation. LCOG operates outside of the LTD boundary. We try to put ourselves in a position of helping to coordinate services to grow and connect our rural transit network and intercommunity transit network beyond the Eugene-Springfield area. We really want to focus on enhancing rider experience and providing more places to go. Great. And then those are some of the new, I think, well, before, when I was speaking with you the last time we met with the STIF committee, those routes hadn't been all connected, and now we see this connections being made. So just a little bit of overview of Link Lane's funding, which is the LCOG, the Public Transportation Service Providers Link Lane. Right now, we're fully funded through the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund. We requested and were awarded funds to purchase a bus through the Federal Transit Authority's 5311 funds for the Eugene to Florence route. They've received some CARES Act funding, and we are really focused on leveraging community partnerships to enhance our services, like the ones that we have through the tribe. And I think I have one more slide. That's our cute bus in the picture there. Our future, we again continue to seek funding, create sustainable funding structures, grow our stakeholders and partnerships, work with our stakeholders like the City of Florence to enhance their transit hub. Part of our funding is to implement a third midday round trip for the Eugene to Florence route 4 times a day. And that intent with that is to connect better with the Coos County Area Transit's new route to provide, again, better service. We want to continue collaborating with our surrounding transit providers, and we were just received a grant funding to create Lane County's first transit development plan through the Transportation Growth Management Program. And so we're drafting the scope of work for that and hope to have funding in place in the summer of next year to start the planning for that effort. Again, we don't have a master plan for our Link Lane services, so this is an opportunity to create that. And with that, I am finished and happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Kelly?
I have a quick question, if I
Go ahead,
could.
David.
Great, thank you. First of all, it's really neat to see the Florence route operational. I remember years ago this being talked about, so that's exciting. I was wondering if you could clarify for me, Kelly, in the packet, when I'm looking at outcome measures, it talks about 9,968 rides. Then it talks about, it gives some numbers for people with transit access and low-income households. When it talks about the rides, is that actual individuals who have ridden on this, or does that just mean number of routes that we're going? Does that make sense?
Let me get to the page here.
Okay, sorry, it's page 34. Basically, I was just after, like, what's the ridership level? Is it around what you guys expected, or I know COVID has made a huge impact.
Yeah.
You can follow up with me later if needed.
No, I have them right here because I wondered if I would get that question. You're asking, just so I'm making sure, you're asking about the Eugene to Florence route and ridership?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are experiencing the kind of predictable, like lower start at the beginning, peak in the summer, and now we're seeing a dip that's probably more pronounced because of the closure freezes that we were experiencing. But with that, even we consider what we're seeing a success, to be honest. In March, we saw 199 riders. April, that dipped to 192. May, it climbed again to 183. And then June and July were both 316 riders each. And then August, 305, so maintained that level. We dipped a little in September, but there were pretty devastating forest fires and we still saw ridership. October, we were at 278. In November, we were at 258. So even with, I think, the levels of restrictions and all the things going on now, we're still seeing pretty substantial ridership and feel that's providing a lifeline service for a lot of folks. I don't think the rides right now that we're providing are recreational in nature. They're for folks who maybe don't have other options. That said, this summer we saw a lot of bicyclists taking their bikes on the bus, and we even saw surfboards. So
great, thank you.
If there are no more questions for Kelly, Kate, who is next? City of Eugene. Is that,
thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Great, thanks. I am Shane Rhodes. I'm the Transportation Options Coordinator for the City of Eugene. And I'm gonna give a quick little run through of our bike share project. So many of you know about Peace Health Rides and bike share, but for those who don't, I wanted to give a basic overview of our system and an understanding of how it fits into transit and our transportation network. So Peace Health Rides bike share was started in April of 2018 with state and local funds, including partnership and support from LTD and University of Oregon. This came after a several-year process that included a bike share feasibility study that was done with our partners and an RFP process that found the vendor for bikes and the operator, which was Social Bicycles. And then we worked with that vendor to find the title sponsor, which is Peace Health of Oregon. And the program launched with 300 bikes and 40 stations that year. And in that first year, we reached 1.78 trips per bike per day, which was higher than our projected in our feasibility study. And it was quickly accepted as an important and well-used transit option in our community. In 2019, we won the Better Eugene Springfield Transportation Award for a Transportation Options Project, as we reached 1.89 trips per bike per day with 21,000 members, over 400,000 miles traveled and 390,000 trips completed on the system. For those who don't know, in bike share systems, if you're getting over one trip per bike per day, it's seen as a pretty healthy system. So for a community of our size, we're very happy with the results we were getting. These trips were taken by a wide swath of the population, but certainly heavily focused in the university area and used by university students who have a discounted rate. In those 2 years of operations, we were very excited to see that system become healthy and growing, and then COVID hit. And though we've continued operations with lower ride numbers, we still saw people using the bikes for essential travel. And even though other communities were shutting down their bike share systems during COVID, we felt it was essential to keep going. Unfortunately, to pour some salt onto that wound, we heard in May of this year that from our operator, which was now Jump or Uber, who acquired Social Bicycles, that they were ceasing operations and canceling their contract with us. So the City of Eugene took operations over internally, and we've been running the bike share system since July with a reduced staffing of our operators out balancing and keeping the bikes in order. We currently have an open RFP that closes on Thursday and are expecting a few proposals to operate the bike share system with some pretty exciting potentials for growth moving into 2021. As the owners of the vehicles and the infrastructure, as well as the contractee for the service provider, we're investing in sustaining and improving this transit option and are really excited to work with our partners, the new operator and our sponsor, to take steps into 2021 to increase access to more riders, especially low-income users, and expand our system and outreach efforts. And that's what this STIF funding will provide. We hope to increase access to low-income memberships. We're also looking at new ways to expand and improve our capital investment. We are planning an upgrade to our controller system that makes accessing the bikes easier and more convenient, and we're hoping to complete that in the spring of this year. And then looking further into 2021, we want to expand the service area, and this will require more bikes and station material, such as racks and signs. And also, as the host for 2021 trials and the 2022 track and field championships, we're looking to make major marketing pushes to increase rides and decrease the impact of those events, which are based in the main core service area of the bike share system. And then finally, the last piece in there is looking to some other communities and what they're doing around access for younger users and those in the, currently bike share is only open to those 18 and over. We'd like to open that up a little bit more and capture some of that student population at 16 and 17-year-olds. And so just some funds to work with our new operators to expand that service and access to people to provide that service. So that's a little bit about bike share and where we are and why we think it's an important connection into the first and last mile of the existing LTD system. LTD and University of Oregon have been really important partners in the system, and we look forward to continuing that work with them.
Thank you, Shane. I think we'll hold off on questions on bike share. We've got one more presentation, and then we'll do questions at the end. Is that you, Ruth?
This is Amanda.
It's Amanda.
Yes, it's me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Ruth could easily give this too. So, and I'll let you, maybe she can answer the questions later. So I am here from, by the way, I'm Amanda Ferguson. I am the city planner for Cottage Grove. The city of Cottage Grove has applied for this funding to extend the Lane Douglas connector. It's a pilot fixed route service that's just going to be starting up in January of 2021 under Umpqua Transit. It's just going to run through July, at present 2 days a week. South Lane Wheels is providing this service between the Roseburg VA Clinic and the Eugene Veterans Hospital, with stops in Cottage Grove between those two north and south destination points. And we're targeting veterans and other rural residents in South Lane County and North Douglas County. We're hoping right now to secure STIF funding to extend that service for 2 years past the pilot, making it into a 5-day-a-week lifeline service between Roseburg and the Eugene Springfield metro area, with stops in Cottage Grove and potentially other points intermediate, including Sutherland and various other places, as demand grows. Our focus will be on providing increased access to low-income residents and veterans within those areas. The total ask for the project is $2,011,185. The project grant is $190,067 with a 10% match. So 80% of the service is in district, and it could even be more potentially considered in district. The remaining is out of district. There is also a separate STIF discretionary STN grant application for a bus purchase that is for South Lane Wheels as well. It's associated with this project. Did I talk fast enough to get through to 5 o'clock?
So questions for bike share or for the Cottage Grove project? Eugene?
Thanks.
Okay.
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Shane. Go ahead, Josh.
I wanted to ask on the bike share additional stations and bikes, is that looking to expand the service area or do infill around transit stations?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Josh. That would be to expand the service area. Yeah, we feel with the amount of bikes and stations we have now, we can do any infill movement in the existing service area. But to keep the density, if we were going to expand the system out, which we hope to do, we need more stations and bikes to keep the density.
So Shane, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about Springfield in terms of that expansion.
Yeah, well, I can say that there's some potentials coming up in 2021 for that, but until we have a new operator in place, I can't really speak to what those are.
Got it. Okay. David, were you going to ask a question? Okay. Anybody else? Questions? Well, we may have finished with 8 minutes left to go. I think Kate has a slide for us with some additional information. Do you want to walk us through this, Kate?
Yes, just really quickly. Again, I want to kind of remind everyone that right now we are only talking about formula funds. So there's going to be a slide in a minute to talk about the other SIF funds that are currently out there for applications. One thing I touched on at the beginning of the meeting and wanted to remind everybody about is the project budgets. So the way that SIF funding works is if project budgets aren't spent in one biennium, they roll forward to our county for the next biennium. So for instance, because of COVID this year, you can see on this slide that we're anticipating that about $4.7 million is going to roll over into the next biennium because we weren't able to spend that money on projects this cycle. But I think it's important to note that at this point, right now, if all the projects were to be spent in the next biennium, based on the applications we've received, we would still have over $1 million that we would put into rollover. So I've made the providers aware of that. Just, they weren't sure who was going to be applying for what. So that now that they've seen all the applications, last time, I think when we had some other types of budget questions like this was an opportunity for you all as the committee to say, hey, providers, would you like to speak to each other and potentially slightly tweak your budgets based on the funding that we anticipate is available? I want to say a couple of things about these. One, that these are just estimates, and it all depends on how much tax revenue is generated over the next biennium. And I think there is a good reason to believe, because of COVID right now, ODOT's estimates are a little bit behind. So they're still budgeting growth, technically looking at the numbers, but they also know that that could be incorrect. So that's to keep in mind. But also, if we did have this much money, the providers, if they do want to spend it, they could potentially tweak their budgets this time. So that's a subject I wanted to bring before you all, and also remind you in the last cycle, they had a 130% list if they were oversubscribed, just in case extra funding came through. And so they can do that this cycle too. If they want to have more money than what is estimated to be here, they could apply for that. And then you all could say, okay, this is kind of the last of the priorities if there's extra available funding. So that's kind of just a process thing. So I think just want to suggest that to you all as an option to let the providers have that conversation and potentially tweak budgets before the next.
I think that's a good idea.
Meeting. And then also, if you have any other project questions that come through in the next few days or right now that are longer, bigger project questions, this would be the time to ask them so the providers can come back to you with answers before the next meeting. And then once budgets are all worked out and you all have gotten your questions answered, that's when you'll start really talking about I was hoping to have time today to start to dive into what you're thinking about projects for, but I knew that was going to be a little bit of a tight window. And so we can talk about that next time. And you really do have next meeting and then another one before you do have to adopt your proposals. So just want to let everyone know that.
And our next meeting is?
Your next meeting is December 22nd, so it's only 2 weeks away. So you have 2 meetings to come. So again, you will need to make a prioritized project list to send to the LTD board. And then the other thing is that right now ODOT has sent applications back that are relevant to Lane County that you all will need to comment on, and you can choose to prioritize those for the STIF discretionary fund and the statewide transit network. So there's, I believe, 8 or 9 applications for that we'll also need to cover. So lots of things to think about. I didn't want to bring those projects into today's meeting just because I know that we knew we had a lot to cover today, but just want to make sure everyone has that in mind for the next 2 meetings.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody. Who's that? I'd like to thank everybody for the good questions, the good discussion today. Next time we meet, we'll be working on prioritizing and getting a bit more into the meat of our work. Are there any other questions before we wrap up today?
Quick question. I was interested in that, what I heard, the 130% list. Is that something that we're able to ask at this point or next meeting, or how does that work?
The 130% list was in the last cycle more of a kind of requirement from ODOT, I guess not, but it was a more prescribed that you would have an excess budget of 130% in case we went over budget. This time, ODOT has not given us, you don't get to specifically put different projects in a list that say this is the 130% list, but you can oversubscribe because these are all estimates, if that makes sense. So I think next time, if you like all of these projects, for instance, a good, I think right now is that the out of district is oversubscribed. And so that you could say, we like all these projects, we want them to be in the project plan, but we prioritize this one last if there's available funding for it.
Okay, I see. So it's the committee ourselves who, when we're doing our prioritization, that we would kind of expand that. Is that correct?
You could look at that oversubscription and say, yes, we want to include it in because it has to be in the STIF plan to be able to be funded. So you can put it in the STIF plan and make sure that the LTD board understands it as your last project that you would want to be funded. So I think you can do that, yes.
But the actual project proposals would come from the providers, is that right, Kate?
Yes, the project proposals would definitely come from the providers. So, and I think, I think last time we had a robust kind of conversation back and forth between the providers and the committee, where the committee can ask the providers to discuss things. And so I think that is an important part of that. And it's unfortunate that we've just run out of time today to start to have that conversation. But I think that is part of the conversation, is that it's great for you all to be able to have that dialogue with the providers.
Well, already with the in-district and out-of-district being under and oversubscribed, I would like to suggest that the providers have a conversation with each other to see if we can find some kind of a way to make maximum use of the funding that's available. Phil, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a quick question. I'm assuming because of the pandemic that the funds available for the STIF statewide are not going to meet the projections that we had a year ago or 2 years ago. Is that right, or have I misunderstood it in some way?
Kate, you're on mute. There you go.
Right. ODOT updates their estimates every 6 months. And I actually think they updated the last time usually it's in July and December. I believe the one we have right now that we're looking at, that we're pulling these numbers from, is from October of 2020. So, so it is a more recent update, yes, of what has already come in this biennium, and then what they anticipate will come in for the next 2 years. But I think because of the way they do their calculations, they say it's on a lag.
So these may be optimistic numbers, in other words.
Yes.
You probably understand that better than anybody, Phil.
Well, I'm assuming that this sort of is an aid to the conversation about 130%. There may not be as many dollars available as they had thought they were going to have, and that would account for part of why this got changed, perhaps. I'm making that up. That's a guess.
I think the 130% list also existed last time because they weren't sure how long it was going to take to implement the transit tax statewide. And so now that it's been implemented across the whole state, they have better estimates, but it's still, of course, always based on what happens statewide economically.
All right, so the new program times the COVID means that it's hard to know how much is effective of a faulty estimate to begin with and how much of it is a result of the reduction in payroll as a result of COVID. Clear as mud. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, we're a little bit past our ending time. Once again, I want to thank everybody. We had good discussion, and we'll have more good discussion on December 22nd. Are there any last words?
Good meeting.
Thanks again, everybody. Stay well. Happy holidays
Mike.
as they're coming up.
Nicely done.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.